Okay, everyone, I am going to kick off the last module as part of our virtual training series. So this is module 8, and we're going to cover application development and DevOps in Azure CSP. Before I kick it off to Steve Lang, who will be presenting this module, I want to first thank everyone for attending and let you know that you can definitely IM your questions in the IM window. I will ask them at the end as part of the Q&A, and then I will also unmute the audience if you want to speak live to Steve. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve to kick it off.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sure you've had a nice, long, hopefully productive day of learning all the ins and outs of Azure for CSPs. So our last session today is on application development with focus on DevOps in Azure. By way of introduction, my name is Steve Lang. I'm a developer technology specialist at Microsoft. I work on the developer experience and evangelism team, or DX as it might be called. My job is to help customers and partners who are making investments in our platforms and tools understand the most technical bang for their buck out of their DevOps tooling. So development tools including Visual Studio, Team Foundation Server, and other platforms and tool sets around that. So we'll be talking about some of that today. To kind of give you a rundown of what we're going to try to get out of our next 45 minutes to an hour together is to hopefully give you guys an understanding of what tools Microsoft has developed and provides to help support both yours and your customers' DevOps initiatives. And as a quick summary of DevOps, Microsoft looks at it as sort of this converged DevOps lifecycle, where you have the idea of planning and development and test, release, monitoring, learning, and taking a better combined merged approach between the different actors in the application lifecycle to really provide a shorter iteration period and higher throughput of value to your end users or your customers. So this is a very broad topic. Given that we have a condensed time frame today, we're going to focus on, I think, two of the more impactful areas that I think you can take advantage of much sooner than later. So we're going to focus on dev and test today and what pieces Azure can help you with in Visual Studio as well as look at a new tool called Application Insights for helping you with monitoring and analytics, etc. So those are the three main categories, the three main topics we're going to go through in our time together today. I also have with me Ken Wilson, who will also be chiming in as well throughout the presentation today. So I do have also a couple of demos when I'm talking about dev test labs and application insights. So hopefully the last session of your day will not just be death by PowerPoint. So that said, let's go ahead and just jump right in. All right, so first up, Azure and Visual Studio. So as you may know, Visual Studio is Microsoft's flagship IDE or integrated development environment for development. It is a broad-reaching tool that allows developers all the different types of tooling and capabilities, access to platforms and languages that they could possibly need at their fingertips to be as productive individual developers as possible. Now, DevOps Flavors has you reaching beyond that desktop to work with more different flavors or actors in the lifecycle, and again, we'll have a couple of overlays there to exemplify that. But focusing just on Visual Studio for now and how it plays into Azure, there are a couple of different sets of tooling that you can integrate into your Visual Studio environment to really let Azure come to life and become much more accessible right off the edge of your fingertips as a developer. So we have the Azure SDK and Azure tools for Visual Studio. Those things allow you to do rapid development of using various languages, not just .NET, but various languages and platforms in the open source world as well, to allow you to develop and deploy applications to both infrastructure as a service and platform as a service environments directly from Visual Studio. It also allows you to get access to your cloud-based services and environments directly from Visual Studio, so you don't have to do a lot of context switching. We also provide some tooling to allow you to manage different cloud-centric configurations, such as definition files and ARM templates. So I'll show you a couple examples of what those look like. So first of all, when you install, say, the Azure tools for Visual Studio, it will give you this additional panel inside of Visual Studio called Cloud Explorer. Cloud Explorer allows you to look at different resources that you currently have provisioned in your cloud subscription. It also allows you to access multiple cloud subscriptions at one time, so you have the ability to switch between those subscriptions or aggregate them all together to get an all-up view of the different resources at your disposal as a developer. You can group these by resource groups, resource types, add in individual subscriptions, add in bulk subscriptions by ID, etc. They also allow you to access different sort of service logs and diagnostics files for different services. So if you're having issues and you want to see maybe a streaming log of what's coming out of say a web application or an API app of some kind, you can do that directly from Visual Studio without having to do a lot of scripting work or jump between the portals. Next up is a Server Explorer, another Explorer panel for you that we give you through the Azure SDK and the Azure tools for Visual Studio. This allows you to get a lot more specific about the resources that you're going to access from Visual Studio in Azure. So in addition to be able to view your different resources that you might have, while it does not allow you to span multiple subscriptions at one time, you can switch to individual subscriptions very easily. And then within a given subscription, you can look at detailed information about those different services. You can also provision services directly from Visual Studio. So if you need to spin up a new VM, it's a matter of right-clicking in the VM node and saying create new VM. Same thing for cloud services, app services, service buses, API environments, anything like that you need. This is also the ideal place if you need to do any sort of debugging or profiling of existing applications. If you say deployed an app service and you're noticing it's not behaving the proper way that you were expecting it to, or maybe it's running differently than how you ran it locally, you can actually attach to that cloud service or the VM or whatnot and perform some debugging and profiling information. So just a quick example of that, let me skip forward one. I'll show you that. So in the debugging environment, this is a screenshot of what that might look like. If you've used Visual Studio before, you know how rich and interactive the debugging experience is inside of it. We now allow you to reap the same benefits of that debugging experience going against remote Azure type resources. So it's a matter of going into your Server Explorer, selecting the Azure resource that you need to debug against, and it will attach the debugger to that resource and then allow you to debug as if that resource is running locally on your machine. You can then download and view streaming log information, you can query against the log information, and you can take action against that logging information. So a lot of great debugging experiences that, again, if you are a Visual Studio user, you've come to know and love, you can take advantage of that in the cloud as well. So let me jump back one to talk about another great area that it's very specific, but I find it very useful with a lot of my customers I speak to every day about developing in the cloud and leveraging Visual Studio to do so, is the ARM tools that are provided as part of the Azure tooling for Visual Studio. So the tooling for Azure Resource Management provides a lot of the IntelliSense and intelligence in general inside of the environment that you're used to getting when you're, say, developing more traditional web applications or class libraries or things like that in C# or VB.NET. You have things like autocomplete and sensing of if you're malforming parameters or you're not specifying the parameter in the right location. It allows you to easily identify that and correct. You can also then take advantage of other tooling inside of Visual Studio that are usually reserved for other types of projects, such as template editing, snippets of code, deploying scripts, a deployment user interface, which is really great for deploying your ARM templates, and allowing you to better visualize your ARM template using what's called the outline view. So it gives you sort of a hierarchical sort of DOM type hierarchical view of what your template currently looks like, which allows for very easy navigation, construction, and editing. So let's move right along past that guy. And so for the CSP, I'll let Ken chime in for just 1 second.
Yeah, sure thing. So thank you, Steve. So some important concepts to consider here are really admin on behalf of, which represents access, and APIs, which represents expanded abilities or capabilities. And CSP and ARM really make it easy to use, right? So the highlight is that the partner has the access and the ability to provision and work in customer subscriptions using APIs, capabilities, such as pre-consent, which we discussed in the first module today. And then a specific use case for partners is developing and selling single-tenant application subscriptions to customers. These partners can easily support CI/CD using Visual Studio. And then also, Visual Studio, leveraging Partner Center API, can be used to build solutions with interesting functionality, such as monitoring usage by customer, validating tenant name availability, or leveraging the ARM API to provision and manage ARM resources.
Awesome. Thanks, Ken. So that said, again, if you have questions, feel free to use the IM window, and others will be happy to answer any questions you might have. That said, let's move right along into the next section called Azure Dev Test Labs. So Azure Dev Test Labs is something that's relatively new, and I wanted to give you guys a good introduction to what that is and how you might be able to leverage that in your everyday experiences in Azure. First of all, as we start to talk more about DevOps, there's this idea of dev test, and leveraging dev test in the cloud is something that's becoming more and more popular, more and more desirable, just because of the potential cost savings, flexibility, and ease of access for development teams. And as you can see here, there are definite drivers out there, such as agility, scale, speed of development, etc., which all lends very well to driving greater efficiency in your DevOps lifecycle. But of course, there are on the flip side, there are also concerns around security and compliance, overall performance, etc., and general lack of control that traditional IT administrators have come to expect. So there's oftentimes a sort of a struggle between the desire to make your team as productive and efficient as possible, balancing against the compliance and security constraints that an IT administrator is often on the hook for. So to help mitigate that, if you take a look at some of the additional challenges of running things on premises for dev tests, traditionally it comes down to speed. Right, you usually have slowed down, lesser agility when you have IT and infrastructure staff maintaining dev test environments. When a development team would like to provision new environments, there's often a request process for that, an approval process for that, which can take upwards of in the fastest customers I've worked with, it's a matter of days. In the slowest customers I've worked with, it's a matter of months. Sometimes 6-7 months just to get a new VM provision for a project. So that can be oftentimes a real big hindrance. So what Microsoft has done inside of Azure is we've implemented what's called Dev Test Labs. Dev Test Labs is a great, easy to use self-provisioning environment to allow you to spin up virtual machines for the sake of dev tests or non-production type environments, give you a sandbox in which you can play in and work with on your development efforts, yet very well constrained in terms of cost, in terms of security and other compliance areas that often IT administrators worry about. So a couple of things, and I'll show you a quick demonstration of what Test Labs looks like. From the developer side, what I love about it is that it is truly worry-free self-service. If I need a new virtual machine, maybe a base image of our corporate VM to do some development against, I need to make sure it's a clean, sanitized environment. I can go ahead and provision that myself, either via scripting or going directly into the portal into Dev Test Labs and spinning up a new VM. I can lock that VM, I can control it, and on the IT side of things, IT administrators can control the cost of that by controlling how big of a VM I can run, how long I can run it for, how many instances of that VM I can have, so they can assign eventually quotas to help control costs behind that, yet still maintain the network isolation and security that, say, virtual networking in Azure can provide for you. Provisioning environments is actually quite fast. You can do it using marketplace images. So by now, no doubt by now, inside of Azure, you've seen the different base images we provide in the image gallery for you to create new VMs. You can certainly leverage those inside of Azure Dev Test Labs. You can also deploy using containers. You can also use scripts as well. So you can create what are called formulas for spinning up those environments, and you can also create your own custom images to leverage when you're creating your your environment. So having all these sort of prepackaged things ready and available for you makes provisioning of environments go from, again, as I said, the fastest request process I've seen is a matter of days. We're talking now down to a matter of minutes. So you can specify, I want to have this VM, go get yourself a cup of coffee. By the time you come back, you have your provisioned VM up and running, ready for you to connect to it and deploy to it. I've kind of touched upon these a couple times already, but the idea is you can also leverage templates. So you can create a template of how you want an environment to look like. This can be for a single machine or multiple machines as well. What kind of virtual network and subnet you want them to connect to, and other constraints around that as well. And then those templates can be shared amongst others in your team to help other members of your team rapidly provision a similar isolated environment for testing maybe a different aspect of the application you're working on. It provides a lot of flexibility, yet still providing some maintainability and repeatability as well. Well, I think this is one of the more important areas of dev test logs as well, in that you can integrate it with your existing tool set. So other tools you might have in your DevOps lifecycle, such as maybe Docker for deployment in containers, Visual Studio or Eclipse for doing development of code, or maybe you're managing deployment and configuration using Chef or Git or Jenkins or Puppet perhaps, or even maybe Octopus Deploy. All those different types of even non-Microsoft based solutions plug in very well with Dev Test Labs, and so you can simply apply configurations to machines you have running in Dev Test Labs, which makes it very easy for you to wire them up, provision, make sure that they are laid down and installed correctly and consistently. But it's really great in that you can then continue to leverage your, say, preferred continuous integration deployment tool set. Maybe you like to use the command line for doing deployments or integrations, or you have specific custom utilities you've written currently today to access your on-premise dev test environments. You can continue the exact same thing with Azure Dev Test Lab, by taking advantage of all the flexibility and performance benefits you get from Dev Test Labs. And Ken?
So I'll jump in here quickly. So CSP's Partner Center really enables the partner to do more here by setting budgets and monitoring and alerting against these settings. Additionally, a partner can use the Partner Center Integration Sandbox, which enables 25 subscriptions per customer with a limit of $200 per month Azure spend per subscription. And this equates to $5,000 in free Azure for dev test. And then Partner Center APIs enable the partner to build custom solutions that monitor usage and alert on overages. So further, these tools built on these APIs make it easy to help provide guidance to customers on scale up, scale down strategies for dev test environments. Back to you, Steve.
All right, cool. Great. So I promised I wouldn't kid with PowerPoint today, so I'm going to go quickly share my desktop, and I'm going to take you through a quick tour of Azure Dev Test Labs. So I'm going to give you an idea of how you can provision new environments inside of Dev Test Labs, and how you can just monitor and apply some cost controls to it, so your bills don't go through the roof by leveraging Dev Test Labs. So what you should see here, if not, I'll be painting in just a moment, is just a dashboard that I have in Azure that just gives me a shortcut to my lab. So I've got a lab here called Steve Lang Lab. So inside Steve Lang Lab, you'll see as it paints for you, I have, of course, some of the basic essential information about my lab. More specifically, I can look at the different virtual machines that I have currently running. So I can see I have a Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7.2 image running. I've got a SQL Server 2016 on Windows Server 2012, and I've also got an image of Visual Studio 2015 running on Server 2012 using the Azure SDK 2.8. So I see I've got some quick status information about these VMs running my lab. I can create new VMs anytime just by hitting new virtual machine, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. But I want to show you some other management aspects of Dev Test Lab, which sets it apart from just spinning up VMs directly through the Azure portal. So if I go over to the settings area on the right, what you'll see is I have the ability to look at, say, all my virtual machines. I can get more information about them. I can pin them. I can apply artifacts, which I'll get to in just a moment. I also have the ability to manage what are called artifact repositories. A repository is basically a location, usually like think of it as like a GitHub project or a location where you can reference additional artifacts or things you might want to apply into your VM. So you can provide a consistent, repeatable, predictable way to add new things into your virtual machines. And I'll come back to that in just a moment. To apply some cost constraints to this, to make sure your costs don't go crazy at all, you have the ability to control certain things, such as allowed virtual machine sizes. So you can choose, just by checking these boxes here, you can choose what VM sizes I'm going to allow to come in here. So you don't have, by accident, someone going all the way down here and creating a DS15, which is going to cost you a lot of money per month compared to like a standard A5. So you can simply choose the options you want to have enabled, and so then when a user comes in a dev test lab to create a new virtual machine, he or she will have this subset list of VM sizes to play with. What you can also do is you can limit the number of virtual machines an individual user can have running at any given time. So if they want to test additional things, you may apply a limit. They'll be prevented from creating more. In this case, I have it turned off, but if I turn it to 1 here, it would make sure that my current user, Steve Lang, was not running more than the maximum allowed VMs per user. You can also constrain the entire lab as well by saying, while this lab is great, it's all very well self-contained and isolated. I still don't want to have just a ton of virtual machines running, so you can specify a limit for how big this lab can actually grow. And then you can have that discussion with people that need more VMs if necessary, either by creating an additional lab, upping this limit, or turning off additional VMs. One thing that really helps with cost as well is setting an auto start and it's definitely an auto shutdown time as well. So I can specify that in this case at 1:30 UTC, I want all of these machines to be shut down to help save on cost. So if I know that I'm not going to have any development going on at night in this lab, I can have them shut down and save myself on some costs. And then I can also go set them to automatically start as well at, say, the next morning if I want to. Most oftentimes customers will leave the auto start off and just let people start them up as needed, just so they don't inadvertently start things that aren't necessary. But you can certainly provide that. And then once you set those controls, as you're working through, as you're seeing users go through your dev test lab, you can do things such as, I've got a very small VM lab here, so the numbers really low, but it'll show you cost trend over time. So you tell you what I've been paying for up to this point, what I'm expected to pay going forward to this time, and then as you add more and more resources to this environment, they're collected every 24 hours, so they'll tell you what's your cost by resource. So this VM is taking up this much, costing you this much money versus this VM. You can then analyze if you can trim that even further. When I talked about building out VMs, not only can you constrain the size of the VM that can be created, but you also can constrain what VMs can actually be created. So you can go to Marketplace Images, which is the list of images that you'll see if you go just straight into the Azure portal and want to create a new VM. But here I can actually specify a subset of that which are allowed to be created. So I'm only allowing these 6 VMs to be created: a CoreOS Alpha, JDK8, Red Hat, a couple flavors of SQL running on server, and I've got server as well. So these are the only types of images that a user, when they go to create a VM in this dev test lab, will be allowed to create. I can also provide my own custom VHDs. So if you have your own VHD, you can go ahead and just upload it. You can upload it directly from here, hit upload, and let it run for a while. We also provide scripts script PowerShell scripts to allow you to automate that a little bit. And then we also provide you as a third way of defining what type of images you can create in the dev test lab is you can create what are called formulas. A formula, think of this as infrastructure as code. So I can specify basically an entire topology for a VM as one called formula, and it's something that will automatically be applied when I select that as my type of image. So in this case, this formula that I have here, if I choose to create a new VM using this formula, I know it's going to use the Windows Server 2012 R2. It's going to create it on a basic A2, put it on my VNet that I have already, and it's going to apply a couple of artifacts that I've already pre-selected. So it's going to apply, if I click on here, it's going to apply Chrome, and it's going to apply Azure PowerShell. So it's going to automatically install these additional assets for me at the point of time of creation. So you can use formulas or you can use custom images. Both have their pros and cons. Custom images are nice because they're generally the fastest way to spin up and provision a new environment. However, if you need to make changes to those custom images, then of course you have to re-upload that image when it's done and then start using it from there. Formulas give you a little more flexibility because you're basically changing the definition or of a template, if you will, but they do take slightly longer to provision and spin up, but they do work very well. The last thing I'll talk to you about when I mention those artifacts or applying an artifact, that's what comes from this artifact repository. So I can do that here by looking at public repo. It tells me where the repository is, and then when I go and I add something, for instance, say if I have this test1 VM here, I can select and say apply artifacts, and while a VM is running, it'll reach into the repos that I currently have enabled for this dev test lab and show me all the assets that I can apply to it. So if I wanted to install Slack or something into it, or install Notepad JSS or or Visual Studio Code, other things like that, I simply select those, hit apply, and you can see it go ahead and starts doing it there. I didn't specify the right artifact, but you get the idea. It actually allows you to apply that without going into the VM itself through RDP and then downloading things and applying it. You can kind of just do that on the fly. So you can build your own artifact repository, reference it. So if you have specific, say, configuration type clients, maybe a Chef client or Puppet or anything like that, you can include that as one of your repositories and have that applied automatically through formulas. So that's a quick and dirty run through of Dev Test Labs. Just know that it's a great way of providing a isolated, secure, self-contained environment, yet that provides development teams flexibility to spin up non-production environments for the sake of dev and test by allowing to apply policies and controls, etc. So I'm going to switch back here. Just load up for me there. Okay. So next up, whoops. Already talked about that part here. I get one little window to go out of my way. There we go. All right. So the main final area we want to talk about is this new product called Application Insights. And this is an Azure-based service that allows you to basically get around-the-world type telemetry about how an application is behaving in the wild. This is something that's enormously valuable for developers, but we're finding it's being used quite effectively and valuably for administrators and people provisioning and in charge of monitoring and maintaining environments, either in Azure or on-premise, but especially in Azure. It provides outside-in monitoring, so you can do things like ping environments. It'll provide you telemetry data about observed user and application behavior, and it also allows developers the ability to, or the flexibility to insert their own types of trace information, which can then be aggregated up to the service. So how does the Application Insights service work? Well, effectively, when Application Insights is enabled for a project or enabled on a deployed application, which is something you can either do inside of Visual Studio at project creation time, or you can also apply Application Insights to a running environment inside of Azure through the portal. But basically what that does is it sets up the application to emit event information about what's going on all throughout the execution of that application. So if they're developer-centric events, they are emitted whenever the developer says they should be, when certain events occur inside the application. But it also will emit information about the server environment in which it's running, users connecting to it and what they're doing inside the environment, and collating it all together onto a really effective timeline. So all that goes into a cloud service in Azure where it's all aggregated for you, presented for you. You can then get a lot of visualization and data out about what is going on in your application. Subscribe to alerts to be notified before your users know when there's a certain issue. And we'll also provide some analytics ways or analytics methods, which is also very new, allow you to do a lot of ad hoc querying against the telemetry data, which, as you can imagine, can be quite enormous. We give you some analytics tools on top of that to let you query against that to glean some good insights as to what's going on inside your application. And I'll show you an example of that in just a moment. Another nice little element of application insights is it is very extensible as well. So we have open source SDKs that you can implement, so it's not specifically just for .NET applications being hosted in Azure. It can be leveraged for applications running on premise. It can be leveraged for, say, Java-based applications running in the cloud, et cetera. So you have a lot of different ways in which you can leverage application insights. We also have what's called continuous data export. So in addition to the App Insights service collecting all of that data about what's going on inside your application and letting you report on top of that, you can also choose to have that data exported into Azure Storage, so you can sit other reporting tools on top of that and collect that type of information. And another way of which you can do, I'm going to show you some basic charts and graphs which you can just get out of the box through the Azure portal in just a moment. But we also have Power BI integration through our Power BI content pack. So if you're familiar at all with Power BI, you can connect Power BI to your application insights storage and do a lot of great dashboarding that way as well. As I mentioned, through the different various levels of SDKs and ways to implement, it is quite simple to turn on and light up application insights. You can simply, as I mentioned, in Visual Studio, when you're creating a new project or even an existing project, if you install the App Insights SDK for .NET, it's a matter of right-clicking on that existing project and saying Add App Insights Telemetry, and it inserts the appropriate NuGet packages and everything you need to light and turn that on. You can also do it at project creation time as well. And you can also go into Azure and extend application insights at any given time. So if you have additional telemetry you want to capture, or say you don't have say you just have a VM running somewhere else that you don't have access to go ahead and instrument the source code, we actually have a status monitor agent that you can actually go to the VM and install, and it'll capture a lot of that same type of performance and scalability information for you. Ken?
So partners are always looking for ways to add value, right? You can add value for your customers by leveraging application insights to identify what is going on before your customer does, right? And with admin on behalf of and knowledge of App Insights, the partner can help the customer troubleshoot latency or other performance problems in their Azure apps. And if the customer wants you to engage further, Application Insights could be used to manage and review customer environments. The partner could provide a value-add service by baselining a customer's apps and measuring against that baseline, giving the customer greater confidence in the availability and performance of their application, and ultimately, which is most important, end user satisfaction. Back to you, Steve.
Cool. Thanks, Ken. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to show you guys a nice little demo of this as well, and then we'll see what questions we have towards the end. So again, application insights is something that is not just restricted to .NET-based applications or things running in Azure. Of course, as you can imagine, things do run a little bit more smoothly, a more integrated fashion that way. But it'll give you a lot of telemetry data about your application. We kind of break it out into different ways by monitoring servers, exceptions, requests, user information, etc. So what you're seeing here is my App Insights dashboard. So again, just another dashboard I created off the home page on the Azure portal. And I included a couple of shortcuts, things that I can tile. And I'll show you all these in just a moment when I go into it, but I first want to drill into the main App Insights area. So when you create an application insights resource, basically it creates a container for you that when you provide this instrumentation key to different applications, it uses that key to know which application insights resource to push that data to. So I've got one here called Fabricam Prod. So it's managing a production environment for a website called Fabricam Fiber. And I can see on sort of the entry page here, I've got some basic information about the application health. So I can see overall timeline of events, my server response time. I can see when it's spiking, when it's loading, page view load time. I can see how that correlates against server requests, and of course against failures too. So at any given time I can start to see there might be some correlation here. I can very quickly drill into these just by clicking on one, and it'll give me additional metrics for, say, server response time, since that's the one I clicked on here. So again, I'm getting a lot of good metric visible information right off the bat. There's other things I can see here too. If I want to say look at a live stream, so I can look at streaming data, streaming App Insights events as they're coming in. I can simply open this live metrics stream view, and I can see, if you see down here under server health, and you can see requests failed per second, dependency calls fails. You can see those starting to go up and down, and so it's giving me sort of that nice real-time view of what's going on. So maybe the moment you get an alert from App Insights saying, hey, you're starting to see a failure here and there, maybe this is the place you start. You can see how things are currently behaving and maybe drill into things from there. We also provide some availability monitoring as well. So if you have a public-facing source you want to periodically check for uptime, you can run web tests. Web tests are basically headless browser tests that you can either upload from Visual Studio, or you can create a simple web test directly from the Azure portal. And every so often, you specify the interval, say every 5 minutes or so, it'll run that web test against your public-facing location and give you information about whether or not that test passed or failed, whether that site was reachable, not reachable, etc. So you can get, again, a quick overview of availability of your application. Where I usually like to start, excuse me, where I usually like to start when I'm looking at application insights is to quickly get an understanding of what the topography of my environment looks like that I'm managing. So I click on application map, and what that will do is it'll build out basically network topology of here's all the different things that are sending me, as the application insights person, sending App Insights resource data. So I can see availability information, I can see the FabricCam prod client, I can see the server, I can see all the blob storage, the queue information, the SQL database, and an Azure table. I can see all information about that, how many calls it's been getting over the last amount of time, in this case over the last 12 hours. So I can see here under server that I'm seeing some issues. So I can really quickly click right here, and I can drill right into seeing all the failed or failures that are on the server in FabricCam prod. So I can see all the failed requests. I can see the different types of errors I might be having, dependency failures, etc. And I can very quickly scroll down here, and I see total of failed requests by operation. And I can see on this get report stash employees, that's pretty much where almost all the failures are occurring. So I can, just with one more click, drill into that. I can see all the failures over time where they've been occurring. And then as the requests load up here across the bottom, I can see the exact errors themselves. So I can say, here's the most recent one, which occurred just a minute or two ago. I can click on that. And when that comes back to me, I can see specific information about the failures. I can see header information about the request that was coming across the wire, specific errors. So I can see here's the actual exception. There was a null reference exception. I can see basic remote dependency calls, related artifacts, etc. And I can drill into these as well and keep going lower in terms of level of granularity until I get to the root cause of my issue. So if I click on the exception, it tells me more about the exception. And then I can go ahead and take action on it if I want to from here. So I'm getting a lot of great information just simply by following sort of the yellow brick road or the breadcrumb trail that Application Insights has left for me. A couple other things I want to show you real quickly let me get rid of my application map here. Or as you saw where I had failures before, and I can look at performance additionally and see performance information as it's captured that way. Again, all these different types of charts and graphs you can customize, you can change them, you can pin them to your dashboard, so I can see average dependency duration. I can see, again, the average server response time, so you see obviously most people are going to the home page, so I can see where going from there. If I have more than one server or multiple servers that are servicing this project, I can see the servers here. I can see I've got one server running right now, and I can see its process CPU time, available RAM, etc. And if I want to get an idea, a better idea of, say, client-side information, like how well is the client behavior working? Am I getting response time the way I want? What's the page view load time? So I can see that here by clicking on browsers. And you see I can always adjust the time frame. I can adjust and set up rules. I can export this data to Excel and other reporting engines as well. And the last thing I want to show you here is usage analytics. So this is really valuable if you want to understand how people are using your application. So As you can imagine, this is especially valuable for web-based applications. But even if you're running just say a series of microservices or whatnot, you want to understand what things are being used the most inside of that. You can see here's the number of users that have been tapping into my application, how many sessions I've been having over time. I can drill into each of these again and see more detailed information about the sessions I have against the users. I can see information about what operating system they're coming from. So this loads up. So I can see the vast majority of people that are connecting to Fabricam Prod are using Windows 7. I've got a few people on Windows 10. And I can see additional page views and what users are doing. I can see where they're coming from as well, so I can see what countries of origins are the most popular. So I can see I've got mostly are coming from the United States, but others from Germany, France, Israel. So again, I'm getting a lot of this great information that normally or historically, if you wanted to get this type of telemetry, you're splicing together a lot of different services, like a Google Analytics, like a New Relic, like another APM type tool, including maybe custom logging as well, like Logit or Nlog. All of which are great, but they don't provide the holistic view of what's going on inside of an application, from an availability to performance to usage to exceptions to developer insight as well. So it gives you a lot of great data there. The very last thing I want to show you is this new addition to the family of application insights called application analytics. So this is a SQL-like query language that allows you to query against all the analytic data that App Insights has been capturing for you. So you can see down here, you go to Jumpstart, you can see there's different examples that you can just quickly jump into. So you can say, where did my users come from the last day? Click on Go. It inserts the query for you and builds a nice little graph for you. You can see the list information if you want. You can then, of course, change the type of graphs you might want. I've created a couple examples just to show you. So I can go to Load Query, and I've got 4 queries that I've set up. So I can say, show me my top browsers in the last 24 hours. I'll select that and hit Go. And it creates a pie chart showing me that the vast majority are using IE10. I've got some on IE11, and I've got a little sliver of Edge as well. I can look at this, say, on well, not a line chart or a bar chart, but a line chart gives me a similar view. Another angle I can take a look at, one thing that I really like to show is what's called 24 hours performance comparison. So it shows you how is the application behaving compared to right now compared to how it was 24 hours ago. So average duration is general response time. So it shows you how your response times are handling today versus yesterday. So we're actually doing a little bit worse today than when we were yesterday. But again, give me that very quick, very fast inquiry type interface into what's going on inside my application. Because as you can imagine, over the course of a month, you might have millions upon millions of data events being emitted up to this service. So being able to do something that's quick and dirty with this type of analytics can be very valuable. Another one I'm going to show you is acceptance prevalence in the last 24 hours. What this means is for the different exceptions that you've encountered, which ones are have been happening to the most number of users. So I can see that here where I'm saying in the last 24 hours, summarize the number of users I have by their problem ID. So I could want to visualize this differently. Maybe I'll put this on a pie chart, and I can see that the vast majority of my users, 379 of them or 84% of them basically have been getting null reference exceptions when they've been visiting. So it gives me a good insight as to where I should spend my time trying to fix issues. And the last one I'll show you is, actually, this is my last, the number of users experiencing exceptions in the last 24 hours. So this kind of gives me, again, that view as well. So maybe not that line, but I can see 380 of my users, and maybe I might group this and also show you my total number of users in the last 24 hours. So I can get a percentage view of how many users of my overall aggregate experienced some kind of issue in the last 24 hours. But you can see that we give you a schema all the way over here. You can build out your own queries very easily and very quickly. You can save your queries as you see me load up mine, and you can see that running view of the different queries that you've run so far just listed here. So if you want to run a different query, just highlight that and run that again, and it'll run that query for you one more time. So it's a very powerful analytics tool, very powerful query tool. This allows you to export, say, to Excel, to CSV, so you can open up if you want to do additional client-side charting and reporting. You're welcome to do so. But this gives you just a very powerful analytics solution right off the bat, so you can really triage and see what your customers are doing with their applications and hopefully diagnose and triage some issues much more rapidly than before. So that said, I'm going to go back to slides here. All right, so we talked about that. So to sum up, and we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A in case there is any, the three main areas we want to focus on today focus really on the dev and test and the monitoring and learning aspects of the development or the DevOps lifecycle. Again, given our time constraints, we thought those would be the most impactful to talk to you about today. And so to cover those two areas, we created three different sections for you. One showing you how you can leverage Visual Studio and access the different various Azure resources you have, not only just for management from a developer experience or the developer desktop, but also from developing and maintaining, say, configuration files, PowerShell scripts, ARM templates, etc., inside the IDE itself. And then we also showed you Azure Dev Test Labs, which is a newly GA'd service in Azure that allows you to create very flexible and low-cost dev test environments, leveraging the power of Azure, yet still allowing you to apply cost controls and security policies and whatnot in a way that provides those environments the proper level of isolation, yet still providing the development team the flexibility that they want to do their job effectively. And then what I just showed you as well to wrap up, we talked about Application Insights, which is a service in Azure as well that allows you to get a 360-degree view of what's going on for a given deployment or application or environment. Allows you to, using alerting mechanisms to provide detection and notification of potential issues, provides you a lot of tooling all the way down to the code level to allow you to triage what those issues might be, and also learn from your users' observed behavior and experiences, all of which can help you identify or help your customers identify where they should focus their efforts on for their next iteration going around that DevOps lifecycle. So that said, I don't know if anyone has any questions. Either feel free to ask them in the IM window. It looks like Alma's already typing something maybe.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Steve, for that. I am going to unmute the audience if anyone wants to ask any questions, or for a couple that I think are joining via phone.
Okay.
Have you wowed them with your demo?
Either that or it's the 8th demo of the day they've seen.
I know. They're like, I'm done. I'm
on a Friday.
Microsoft out. I know.
Right.
What I will do is, sorry, hold on one second. I will make everyone on the call aware that there is a DevOps bootcamp that will be happening July 29th and July 30th. So one of my peers, Rodrigo, is taking that lead. So if Steve wowed you so much and you want to, do a double click and really learn more about it, please feel free to reach out either to myself or Rodrigo, who will be doing this boot camp, this DevOps boot camp for the U.S. Either on July 29th and 30th. And I believe, Steve, you will also be part of that, correct?
I might be. Yes,
Okay.
I'm hoping to be. We'll
Okay.
see.
Good.
If not, my even more knowledgeable peers will be.
Great. So if there's not any questions, what I'll do is I will end the recording. Myself and Steve and Ken will just hang on the line. Maybe there's people that are shy and don't want to ask in front of all 15 of us. But thank you so much for participating. I know it's been a long day, but definitely wanted to cover all the topics that it's beer time. All the topics that have been asked, over the past 9 months as we ramp up in Azure CSP. So with that, thanks for participating. Appreciate you guys attending. We'll kind of hang on if there's just any last minute questions.
Great. Yep, I'm going to turn off my webcam, but I will happily stay on for a few more minutes if anyone has any questions.
Steve, I'm going to miss your beautiful face.
Oh, it's...
Thanks, Stefan.
So there's a question, when will VSO, or now called VSTS, be available under CSP? I think that was actually a question that we asked earlier. So I don't know, I don't know if Ken can speak to that at all, or which sort of just TBD. We know it's something we want to get added to CSP, but I know it's definitely not available today.
Yeah, it's not available today. I see Manan on the line. I'm not sure if you may know.
Yeah, we don't have an ETA for this yet, Uma.
No ETA for this yet, you said?
No, no
Oh,
ETA.
okay. Second question from Jason. Do you know if they will be covering Azure automation during the DevOps bootcamp? I'm not sure, but that's a question that I can ask my colleague. Give me 1 second, Jason. I think he's actually online, so I might be able to answer this in real time. Let's see.
And we have another question saying, do we have a contact email for questions from today? Is there a single point of contact for additional questions? Or maybe, Stephen, are you asking about this particular session, or are you talking about just in general for the entire course of the day? In general.
General, that'd be me. So I'll type in my email, Microsoft. So Stephen, you can email me your questions and then I can point you, either answer them or at least point you in the right direction as to whom will be able to answer because there were different presenters on each module. And in terms of the VSTS question, I was actually speaking to Rodrigo about this as a possible workaround. Would we be able to spin up a VM in Azure CSP and then upload the application there, or would that not work?
Well, it'd be a lesser workaround. What that would basically be is it wouldn't be so much VSTS. VSTS is effectively Team Foundation Server, or TFS, as a service. So the workaround I think Rodrigo is referring to is one option is you spin up a VM in your CSP subscription and then install TFS on that, which has some additional moving parts to it and a couple hoops jump through, but it is perfectly supported. It's just what it does though, it still puts the onus on the owner of that VM for the maintenance and patching the VM, upgrading of the TFS environment and things like that. But it certainly does provide more of the DevOps tooling that Microsoft espouses through VSTS to people that can access that VM. So it is a workaround, but by definition of a workaround, not perfect, but it is an option.
Okay. And then to Jason's question, we're not sure yet. They're still finalizing on the confirmed agenda, so TBD. And Jason, if you could put your email into the IM, what I can do is just make sure that you are privy to the agenda once it's confirmed. Jason. Yes, Stephen, will do. Yes, Manan, recordings will be made available. I'll do that on Monday, so I need to upload them. They'll be uploaded to Yammer, and then I'm going to send a recap email with the links for all of the modules to all of the distribution groups and aliases that I sent the initial calendar invite to. You're very welcome. All right, I think everyone's ready to go to happy hour, Steve.
Especially those on the East Coast.
I know,
Happy hour is almost over.
I know. Uh,
Thank you, guys.
all
Bye.
right. So with that, I'll end it. So thanks, everyone.